الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا متقبلا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك اللهم ونتوب إليك. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, as usual, Hassan will be reading and then we'll stop after every point and we will edit or comment on each part as and when required, inshallah ta'ala. So over to you, Hassan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. How the prayer is performed. When one intends to praise, he is to withdraw his hands from his sleeves and then raise them to the level of the ears and utter the opening Allahu Akbar without extending the letters. One is to form his intention of prayer when he says Allahu Akbar.
Okay, so first of all, when we start our prayers, we have to raise our hands to the ears for men and to the shoulders for women, as we said. Now it says, take your hands out of your sleeves. That's of course if you had your, if I show you, if you had your hands in your sleeves like this, so you were like with your sleeves, so you take it out, or more likely you've got, it says a cold day, and you're like this, right? You've got your hands in your sleeves, so you don't do Allahu Akbar with your hands. I can't really do that like that. You take your hands out, Allahu Akbar, and then you place your hands beneath the navel for the men and on the chest for the ladies. And as you obviously have your hands raised, you say Allah. So just going to the prayer now, not Fard Wajib Sunnah, we've done that. So you then say Allahu Akbar as well. And at this point, you're supposed to have made your intention. Just before this point, you got the intention of 4 rakat Fard of Salat of Dhuhr of today. And then you say Allahu Akbar and you commence your prayer. Bismillah, carry on.
It is valid to any pure glorification of God, such as glory be to Allah or there is no God but Allah.
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit before. We said it's wajib to say Allahu Akbar. The word Allahu Akbar is wajib. And we said that any glorification of Allah, any dhikr of Allah can be used to start the prayer. But the actual words Allahu Akbar should be used, like they're wajib. And that's what we're all going to say. There's one point I missed out, is that you shouldn't do the mad as Hassan read when you're doing Allahu Akbar. And how does that work? If you don't say when you start your prayer, Allahu Akbar. You don't do the mad of the Hamza. Don't say Allahu Akbar. That actually means, why don't you do that? To stretch the Hamza, it means, is Allah the greatest? You're asking the question. Asking the question is very dangerous. We don't ask that question at all. Allah is the greatest. I mean, there could be a context where you might ask that question, to make a point or something, rhetorically. But here in the Salah, it's not a question at all. It's a statement. It's a declaration. Allah is the greatest. And therefore, stretching the Hamza changes the meaning drastically, which would mean your prayer doesn't commence and it's invalidated if you do that during the prayer as well, in any of the takbir. So any of the takbirs you go through, don't ever stretch the Hamza and say, Allahu Akbar. No. You can make the lam of Allah longer. So Allahu Akbar. But not the Hamza. Allah, incorrect, wrong. Allahu Akbar, correct. Right? And you'll notice that the lam is stretched often in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you can do 6 stretches, 6 harakat. This is the rule of stretching. It's not a problem, inshallah ta'ala. So then you can also, as if Hassan's going to read on, if you read on, Hassan.
The opening Allahu Akbar is permitted in Persian if one is unable to say it in Arabic. If, however, one is able to say the opening Allahu Akbar in Arabic, then his commencement of that prayer in Persian or any other language is invalid. Likewise, a recitation of Quran in any other language other than Arabic is invalid in a ritual prayer.
Yeah, so again, this is a mas'ala that I think we visited before. And can you recite Farisi, which means any foreign language or non-Arabic language, Farisi being Persian, but the rule applies to all languages. It has a lot of knock-on effects, this ruling, because if we say that you can, then that means that any translation of the Quran has a an aspect of the Quran, and this is one opinion, that it has the meaning of the Quran. So a translation is the meaning, and therefore has to have the rulings there mean you can then use it to pray if you can't read Arabic. Yep. So I don't know Arabic, I don't know how to recite these words, but I can read a translation. I can, I memorize the translation. Can I read that? Right? Can I just say, oh, God is the greatest, right? Because it means the same thing. And these kind of things. So for the takbir as well, can you use another language or not? And also where does it impact things? On actual translation of the Quran. So if you've got an actual written copy that's a English, French, or another language, and we've said it's a Quran in certain ways, then having wudu to hold that, passing it to a Muslim, you can't give it to a non-Muslim if that person's needs wudu to carry it, because they're going to be disrespecting it, and you're going to be breaking the laws of Islam. So there is an opinion that the Quran has that aspect to it, and therefore we need to be in wudu, therefore we can recite it in our prayers in another language, etc., if we didn't know Arabic, etc. However, the more practical opinion, and the more the one that should really is more easier for everyone, is to consider anything other than the Quran in Arabic, any translation, any kind of explanation, we'd call it now, right? Because every translation will be different as well. In English, there's several translations. There's about 20 translations in English, right? So they all be different somewhat. They're all interpretations of the Quran, and they all should be respected and honored, but they're not recited in the Quran. They're not in the Salah. They not have the same. They have a level of honor and respect. We don't want to just say just English words, but they don't have the same level of sacredness as the actual Arabic Quran, and therefore we can pass a copy of the Quran to a non-Muslim, etc. It makes it easier for us in that sense, and that's not out of disrespect, that's out of da'wah. And of course, coming back to the prayer, then what if I don't know Arabic and don't know the Quran? It's simple. You just recite what you do know and what you can know. I think everybody can learn Allahu Akbar pretty much. Everyone can learn Bismillah, Alhamdulillah. That's all you know. You just recite that. You stand and you go into ruku. So this is how actually you do when you don't know the Quran, enough like Surah Fatiha and a surah. Then all you do is you read what you do know, and you'll have fulfilled the obligation, because the obligation is literally a few words to read. And even Bismillah covers that, by the way, right? So if you literally just said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you've covered the obligatory, absolute minimal amount of Quran required. Of course, we need Fatiha, we need other things, we discussed this before. So there's no real difficulty in reading in Arabic for anybody, really. I mean, I do know, I do understand that people new to Islam or Arabic language may actually even struggle with Bismillah for a while, or even simple words. It's not a case of just because we know and it's easy for us that everyone should find it easy. Of course, we have to understand people. It'll take time for them to adjust and pronounce and so forth. But it's the same, as long as you know something, just pronounce what you do know and then carry on with your prayer. So it's talking about not a very common situation, but it has its application, I suppose. But for us and everyday circumstances, just say Allahu Akbar and start your prayer, right? That's really what it's about. Then what we do, Hassan?
Thereafter, one is to place his right hand over the left hand under the navel without delay after the opening Allahu Akbar. Then one is to recite the opening glorification, which is, "Glory be to you, O Allah, and I praise you. Blessed is your name, and exalted is your majesty. There is no God other than you."
Yeah, mashallah. So we didn't talk about what the thana is, but that's the thana. We've mentioned it's a sunnah to recite that at the beginning of prayer. So first of all, it says, place the right hand on the left hand beneath the navel after the takbir. For ladies, on the chest. For men, they'll grab, and for ladies, they will lay it flat. We explained this before. And then you open with the opening thana, which means glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is subhanakallahumma bihamdika wa tabaraka ismuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruka, which means, O Allah, glory be to you, O Allah, and your praises, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, and your praise. Tabarak wa tabaraka ismuka, blessed be your name, extolled and free of any blemish, and transcendent be your name, and be you. Wa ta'ala jadduka, and transcendent be your status, your description. Wa la ilaha ghayruka, and there is no one, no God, no one worthy of worship except you. And after this point, what do we do, Hassan?
It is sunnah upon anyone who prays to begin with this opening glorification.
Yep. Bismillah.
One is then to say the ta'awudh for recitation. The latecomer to the prayer is to say the ta'awudh, though the one who begins with the imam is not to.
Yeah. So, thank you. So everyone who's praying, doesn't matter what your prayer is, you do the Tana. Subhanakallah, is for every person entering the prayer at the beginning. If you enter late, the question might come, or the Imam reciting Quran, I've joined. Do I read Tana or do I listen to the Imam? You listen to the Imam. You only do the Tana if you obviously have a no recitation and a clear opportunity. You might join in Ruku as well. You missed the Tana. So if it's missed, it's missed. Um, but if you obviously have time to read the Thana, when you join the prayer, you read every prayer of the prayer, whether alone, whether in congregation, whether latecomer, whether at the beginning, it doesn't matter, you read the Thana. So it's sunnah for all people who pray. As for the ta'awwud, which was mentioned next there, um, then it's for recitation. We discussed this before as well. So if you're reciting the Quran, and as an imam you're reciting, as an individual alone you'll be reciting, you read ta'awwud, it's after Thana. However, if you're following an imam in a congregational prayer, you won't be reciting the Quran. Whenever there's Quran recitation, you be quiet, or you listen, you pay attention, you be submissive. So you would want to recite the basmala, the a'udhu billah, if you are not reciting the Quran according to Imam Abu Hanifa. If you remember, we did say Imam Abu Yusuf, rahmatullah alayhi, said you can recite the basmala, the a'udhu billah, and it should be for anybody who prays. So he made it exactly like the thana. If anybody joins the prayer, should read subhanakallahumma bihamdika and a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim for every praying person. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, which is what this text is based upon, the Hanafi madhab and Imam Abu Hanifa's opinions predominantly, we will be taking some of the opinions of Imam Abu Yusuf, Imam Muhammad, and maybe other scholars as well, because it's not about one person, it's about the whole body of scholars. But predominantly, the text is in accordance with the opinions of Imam Abu Hanifa. So he says you don't say Basmala unless you're reading the Quran. So therefore, the late comer, the masbuq, will read A'udhu Billah because he will be reading the Quran. What's a masbuq or a late comer? A late comer is somebody who missed one rakat or more with the Imam. So you come late to the prayer, you missed a rakat or two rakats or three or even four. You are classified as a late comer. You'll get the virtue of Jamaat, you'll get some rewards of Jamaat, but you can't say you prayed full Jamaat behind the Imam. So there is less of a reward, obviously, not the same as somebody who prayed his prayer from the beginning behind the Imam. You're a late comer, there's less of a reward in that. So don't be late, it's not the same as making the full prayer with the Imam. But because you're a late comer, meaning you missed a rakat or more, then you will, at the end of the prayer, the Imam will give salam, the congregation will give salam, you will stand and perform a rak'ah, one or two or three, however many you missed afterwards. When you stand and form your missed rakats, you will have to read Quran. So wajib for you to read Quran in those rakats, or one or two at least. And therefore you need to have read A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. So for the masbuq, he will read the A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. And then it talks about the A'udhu Billah and the Eid prayer. So what does it say there, Hassan?
One is to delay the ta'awuz until after the additional takbeers of the Eid prayer.
So what that means is, if those of you who prayed Eid and confident and understand Eid prayer, basically in the first rakat, so it's talking about opening the prayer and A'udhu Billah at the beginning of the prayer. In the first rakat, you make the three takbeers as takbirat as zawaid in the first rakat before recitation of the Quran. Okay. Therefore, if you're going to be reciting the Quran, the Imam, he will do the takbirat first, and then you delay the ta'awudh and then the basmala and the fatiha till after the takbirat. That's what he's saying. So you don't say subhanakallah wa bihamdika, then you say a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, and then do Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, your three takbeers. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So you don't do the ta'awudh before the takbirat, you do the ta'awudh after the takbirat in Eid prayer. That's basically what it's telling you, right? That's the place and the methodology of performing the beginning of the Eid prayer. You start with Allahu Akbar, you read Thana, Subhanakallah wa bihamdika wa tabarak ismuka wa ta'ala wa la ilaha ghayruk. You stop, the Imam will say Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar. Second Allahu Akbar, you do second Allahu Akbar. Third Allahu Akbar, you do third Allahu Akbar. The three takbirat are done. The Imam, because you're not reading Quran, the Imam will say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, silently, quietly, and then he'll start reading the Quran. And that's how the remainder of the Eid prayer will be done, which we'll study later. It's part of this study, inshallah. The Eid prayer is coming quite a length away, because we don't have to go through the prayer, the congregational prayer, other prayers, what breaks the prayer, what doesn't break the prayer, makruhat. There's a lot of sections. And then it talks about Eid prayer. And then after Eid prayer, I believe so it talks about Jummah prayer. When Jummah is done, then it talks about the the Eid prayer as well at that time. So it's a long way away. Congregational prayer itself is before that, the whole concept of congregation. But nevertheless, just to understand that if you begin the Eid prayer, then the takbirat come first, then the ta'awudh, then the basmala, then Surah Al-Fatiha. And Bismillah, Hassan, carry on.
Thereafter, one is to silently say, "In the name of Allah, most merciful, most compassionate." And anyone who recites Quran in prayer is to say, "In the name of Allah, most merciful, most compassionate," in every rakat before Fatiha only.
Yeah, so again, this is to be done, all of that previously was done quietly or, to oneself. Similarly, the Bismillah is to be said, and again, it's to be said quietly by the Imam, because the Imam is going to be Bismillah Rahman Rahim and Surah Al Fatiha. And every rakat, the Imam begins, or if you're praying by yourself, you begin with Bismillah Rahman Rahim before you read Surah Al Fatiha. And you don't do more than Bismillah. So you don't do A'udhu Billah, Bismillah every rakat. You just do A'udhu Billah in the first rakat, and then every following rakat, you start with Bismillah Rahman Rahim, then you read Fatiha. Yeah? Okay, carry on, Hassan.
The Fatiha is then recited, after which the Imam and the followers say Ameen silently. This is followed by the recitation of a surah from the Quran or 3 verses.
Yeah, so like we say, Fatiha comes after Basmala. When the Fatiha is finished, the author Imam Shurumbulay Rahmatullah alayhi is talking about congregation prayer within the description of prayer. But if you're by yourself, you will say Ameen after Fatiha. Is Sunnah to do so. If you miss the ayah, it doesn't make a massive difference, but Sunnah, we should always try and do the Sunnahs. But if with the Imam, he will say Ameen out loud. If it's sorry, he will finish Al-Fatiha, and you will all say Ameen quietly. It says that there, the Imam and the followers will say Ameen quietly to themselves, and you all try and do it together, inshallah. And then you add a recitation of a surah of the Quran. Any surah is valid, and the Sunnah recitations are going to come later. We may have mentioned them previously as well. And the 3 ayat equivalent, or any 3 ayat actually, but any 3 short ayat would also be sufficient. So Surah Al-Kawthar is the shortest 3 ayat in the Quran in a sense. You can get shorter ones together, but they're valid as well. Any 3 ayat or any longer ayat which is equivalent to Surah Al-Kawthar would be valid as well. So, Ayat al-Kursi, for instance, is like about 4, 5, or maybe more, 6, 7 lines, probably like 3, 4 times the length of Surah Al-Kawthar. If you read Ayat al-Kursi, one ayah is fine. So we talked about this as well. So Surah Al-Fatiha, then 3 ayat or a surah of the Quran after that, or one long ayah as well. And then after you've completed your recitation, so the Imam is going to recite, or you by yourself, you're going to do all your recitation of the Quran. You've done the integral of standing. You've done your takbir, which initiates the prayer. You've done your recitation. Now, what's next? If you read on, Hassan.
One is then to say Allahu Akbar while moving downwards into the bowing posture and pause for a moment in serenity, placing his head evenly with his buttocks and holding the knees with his hands, extending the fingers and uttering the tasbih. Glory be to my Lord the Great, 3 times, which is the minimum. Thereafter, he is to rise and pause for a moment at ease, saying, Allah has heard those who praise him. Our Lord, all praise is yours. If he is the Imam or praying alone, it is sufficient for the follower to say, Lord, all praise is yours.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, Hassan. So the whole concept of ruku is now explained. So after Quran, you say Allahu Akbar. You don't raise your hands in the Hanafi madhab, and some obviously do believe in raising your hands. Fine, it's a difference of opinion. And after saying Allahu Akbar, you go into ruku. Ruku, we explained before, is the bending of the back. So the sunnah way explained here is that your head and your buttocks be all one, and obviously your legs be perpendicular with your back as well. Right? We explained that last time. And you take hold of your knees, right? And you spread out your fingers for men, right? And you say Subhanallah, Subhanallah al-Azim, Subhan Rabbi al-Azim, Subhan Rabbi al-Azim, Subhan Rabbi al-Azim, which means glory be to my Lord, the great, the Azim, the magnificent. And the minimum, the requirement of the Sunnah for that is 3 times. You can do it 5, 7, 9, but in the Fard prayer, we tend to stick to the minimal aspect, because Fard prayer in this description is the congregational prayer as well. So it would, you don't want to lengthen the congregation and delay people, etc. There's got to be some wisdom in that, right? So we pray to the sunnah level, but we don't go to like extra sunnahs and long sajdas. We're doing a congregational prayer. The fard prayer tends to be to the point, to the sunnah, and let people get off on their ways. If you want to extend their sunnah prayers, if you want to extend their nafil prayers, if you want to extend any other prayers, that's fine. So then after doing the ruku and saying Subhanallah, Subhan Rabbiyal Azim 3 times, one says Allahu Akbar and rises back up to a fully standing position, and again remains still there. And if you remember last time and the time before, we said, although Imam Shurmuzari mentions that this standing and remaining still is a sunnah, it's actually a wajib, as mentioned by other ulama and scholars, and that has been researched and checked, and that's the fatwa that it's actually you need to stand and stay still after ruku. And in that position, the Imam, if you're in a congregation, will say, Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allah hears the one who praises. The hamidah actually is not him, but just praises. And the congregation, the followers then say, Rabbana, to themselves. Rabbana lakal hamd. They don't say out loud. And the Imam can say that as well. So Imam can say, but if you're by yourself, you say both. But normally in a congregation, the Imam says the first part, Sami Allahu liman hamida, and the followers say, Rabbana lakal hamd. There are different variations, Rabbana wa lakal hamd, Allahumma Rabbana lakal hamd. The most shortest and well-known version is Rabbana lakal hamd, and that's fine. If you hear slight additions of wow or Allahumma, that's fine as well. It is mentioned in the reports. Allahumma Rabbana wa lakal hamd. And there's even other extensions to this, Rabbana lakal hamd, hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi, which are mentioned in the hadith that some Sahaba said this and the Prophet was pleased with this, etc. They can be done again in the nafil prayers, they can be done again in your other prayers. For the fard, stick to what's in the text, what's the basic level of the sunnah, so we don't lengthen the prayer and start extending it, keep it to this this level. And if you're by yourself, we said that you will do both, and if you're a follower, you just do the Rabbana lakal hamd. Yeah. So if you're a follower, you won't say the first part. You'll come out of your ruku when the Imam says Sami Allahu liman hamida. You're only going to say as a follower in a congregation, Rabbana lakal hamd. Yep, I think that does all of that. Then obviously you're now in a standing position. You said Rabbana lakal hamd. What's the next thing we do, Hassan?
After that, one is to say Allahu Akbar when declining into prostration, and is to place his knees on the ground, then his hands followed by his face between his palms. He is to perform the prostration with his nose and forehead and pause for a moment, saying, Glory be to my Lord Most High, 3 times, and this is the minimum.
Yeah, so Jazakallah khair. So again, Allahu Akbar now for the sajda, and we go all the way down to sajda. How do we go down? Knees first, the knees go onto the ground, right? Then the hands, then the face, which means the forehead, and as it says there clearly, on the nose and the forehead, both are mentioned. So make sure the nose, and he actually said this hard part here, not just the tip of the nose, this soft part, but as soon as it starts getting harder, that part here, the bony part, and then the forehead as well, anywhere of the forehead really, even say either side of the forehead, but yeah, obviously the middle is where we use, and then you stay there in serenity, and of course you perform the tasbih of sajda, which is Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. 3 times is the sunnah, the requirement for the sunnah, and that means glory be to my Lord, the Most High, the Transcendent. And then, if you read on, Hassan.
In the prostration, one is to distance his abdomen from his thighs and distance his upper arm from the armpits where there is no crowd or cramming. And he is to direct the fingers of his hands and toes of his feet towards the Qibla. The female in prostration connects her limbs, bringing them together, close together, joining her abdomen with her thighs.
Yep, Jazakallah khair. So just more description on the actual methodology of sujood, which we've talked about before, but we know that for men, you separate your abdomen, your stomach, from your thighs, so you don't get close to your legs, okay? Your legs and stomach shouldn't be, it actually says in the hadith that when the Prophet prostrated, a small goat could have walked underneath him, like through the gap he left for his prostration. So his body was off the ground, it was off his legs, it wasn't on his thighs, right? You don't go on your thighs and prostrate. You have this, you don't have a big arch as well. It's just not just like you distance the thighs from the stomach, right? They keep that distance. And I've got to mention, I did mention last time, when Hassan did read it, you prostrate between your palms, right? Remember that we said that you don't put your palms too far ahead, too far behind. You prostrate between the palms on either side when you're on the ground. And you also push away your elbows from your sides. So you don't keep your elbows together as well. You might keep your stomach away from your abdomen, your stomach away from your thighs. Also keep your elbow away from your sides as well, the rib cage area of the side. Keep it out. But as it says there, when it's not crowded. So if you're in congregation, don't elbow people, as some people think, he hasn't given enough space. If you have to go in tight, that's fine. Just respect others and try and use the space as best as possible. This happens sometimes in Juma or crowded prayers. Like I remember when we were in Riyadh al Jannah, right in Medina. Allah grant us the entry and visitation of the Messenger of Allah and entry into His noble masjid and the Riyadh al Jannah, the garden of meadows of paradise. Um, and we actually didn't get in. Like we got in afterwards, but on the process to get in, we were stuck. And this is where we talked about prostrating on the back of someone as well. And we managed to just have just enough space squeeze in to prostrate for Isha prayer, I think it was. And then after that, we got into Riyadh al-Jannah. But, you can't push your elbows out there. You're just going to hurt people and just offend them, to be honest. So, the sunnah is to remove your elbows away from your sides, but obviously be wise in congregation that you don't upset anyone or, harm. It's actually harm to people. It's not correct. It's actually wrong. And then it also says that you should face your fingers of both the hands and the toes, so hands and toes, towards the qibla. So they should be facing towards the qibla, the hands. There you go. That's straight on your screens, hopefully. And the feet, toes on both legs should be, as we said, like erect like this, not back like that, right? We talked about this before. That's for men. As for ladies, they will actually keep themselves together. They'll put their legs to the side and they'll put their stomachs to their thighs, etc. Because this is more concealing. It's a more of a modest posture, which is what the salah of ladies is built upon. Yani salatun niswati mabniyatun ala satr. The prayer of ladies is built upon satr, which means covering, concealment, modesty. So yeah, just so they're not the same in the positions, and unfortunately, some people don't learn that or understand that. We explained that last time as well. So hopefully, you're recognizing the differences, inshallah. So don't take the main or the first part as for everybody. Sometimes it differs between men and women, as we explained previously and today as well. So now you've done your first sajda. You come out of the first sajda by saying Allahu Akbar, and then you do what? As Hassan's going to read on.
He is then to rise from the prostration saying Allahu Akbar and adopt the sitting posture between two prostrations, pausing for a moment in serenity, placing the hands on the thighs. He then utters the takbir, Allahu Akbar, and prostrates for the second time and pauses for a moment at ease, during which he says, Glory be to my Lord Most High 3 times. In prostration, a man is to distance his abdomen from his thighs and his upper arms from the armpits. Thereafter, he is to raise his head, saying the takbir, and rise to the second rak'ah without depending on the ground with one's hands and without briefly sitting.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So you sit up, you pause in this sitting. So you say Allahu Akbar and you sit up. So you're in a sitting position. It's called Jalsa. In this Jalsa, you pause and then you say Allahu Akbar. There is a hadith that says in this posture, the Prophet would say, Rabbik firli, Rabbik firli. He say it twice, Rabbik firli, Rabbik firli. And I do that personally. And I kind of measure that as my stillness. Allahu Akbar, Rabbik firli, Allahu Akbar. So it kind of helps you to just pause for a second as well. It's like we said earlier, it should be done in the nafil prayers. It should be done in the sunnah prayers. But, it's become a thing that I miss it sometimes. But, I try to kind of say Rabbik firli. It's a sunnah. It's mentioned in the hadith. I don't recall the full hadith, but it's a narration that the Prophet at this point would be heard to recite Rabbik firli, which means, oh my Lord, forgive me, oh my Lord, forgive me. Allahu Akbar into the second sajda. Again, second sajda like the first sajda, head between the palms, keep your sides away from your your arms from your sides, abdomen away from the thighs, serenity in there, takbir, the tasbih 3 times. And then obviously it's the same as the first one. Then you're going to say takbir again to come out of the sajda. And then it explains how you come out of the sajda. You raise your head and then you go all the way up without relying on the floor, without taking any support of anything, to be honest. So whether it's something by your side or the floor, you don't push off with your hands, you push off with your knees. This was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, if you're tired, if you're old, if you have an injury, you've got a back problem, we said before you can take support of something and then help yourself. Or you could have a stick in your hand for all you know, that's fine. That's not normal circumstances. Under normal, healthy circumstances, you get up with your knees, your hands will be on your knees. So you go opposite to what you went down in. You went down with your knees, you put your hands, and then you put your head on the floor. Take your head off the floor, take your hands, put them onto your knees, and push off with your feet and your legs and come to a standing position. And also, when you come out of the second sajda and you come to standing position, there's no pause. So you might see some people, they sit up, they pause, and then they stand up. They actually have a little sitting after the second sajda as well. After the first sajda, everyone has to have a sitting, that's part of the prayer. But you find some people may stop after the second sajda as well, and then come to a standing position. It says here that there's no sitting after that sajda, second sajda. In the commentary I have, and I think you may have it in your books as well, because the commentary we're reading the bold as we said. It says this is called jalsatul istiraha. If you were to sit after the second sajda, it's called the sitting of a break or having a istiraha, relaxation. And this is a sunnah according to Imam Shafi'i. I've got this written here. Hassan, is that written on your copies?
Yeah, it is at the right at the end. It just says such as those who observe the Shafi madhab.
Yeah, right. Thank you. So that is something that you might see other people do because they follow that understanding, and it's based on hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, at some point in his life he did do that. He after the second sajda he would stop, and then he would get up. So he wouldn't go straight from prostration to standing. From the second sajda he would sit, and then from sitting you go to standing. The Hanafi say that is allowed as well, and some of the Sahaba didn't practice that, saying that and explained it that the Prophet did this at the end of his life or towards when he was older, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to show that when you get older, and if you are in need of that sort of pause, if you don't practice in your old age as well, that's fine. So it is in a sense something that you can do, but in normal state of affairs, is not considered to be a sunnah according to Imam Abu Hanifa, but it is actually according to Imam Shah. He says all prayers you should do it in a sense. It's sunnah to do it. So it's a difference of opinion on when it should be done, really, not if it's part of the prayer or not. The Hanafis do agree that it was done. There's a hadith that show that it was done, but they just say it's towards the latter part of one's life, and it's for the elderly, for those who need that little break from the second sajda, maybe to adjust themselves before they get up. Allahu A'lam. Right, so now you're going to stand up. You've completed a whole rakat now. Stood, recited the Quran, bowing, stand again, prostration, sit, prostration. Allahu Akbar, and you come to a standing position for rakat number 2. What do we do now if Hassan reads on?
Second rak'ah is performed like the first one, with the exception that there is no sana, nor is there a tawuz.
Yep. So in the second rakat, it's exactly the first rakat, but there's no thana. So you don't start with subhanakallah. There's no ta'awud, there's no a'udhu billah. So where do you start from? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And it's exactly the same. You do another Fatiha, you do some more, do another surah or ayat of the Quran, and then you're going to go into the ruku again. Right? So the second one is just exactly the same as the first. It's just that there's no initiation of the prayer, which is Allah Akbar and Thana. There's no Allah Akbar and Thana. It's just straight and ta'awud. It's just straight to Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And then now, obviously, we're going to talk about a few different rulings regarding the prayer. If you read on, Hassan.
It is not sunnah to raise the hands, except for the opening takbir of all prayers, the takbir of qunut, and for the additional takbirs of both Eids. Externally from the prayer, it is sunnah to raise hands at, number 1, the time one sees the Kaaba, number 2, at the time when one greets the black stone, number 3, when one is upon the Safa and Marwa, number 4, when one is standing in Arafah and Muzdalifah, number 5, after the first and middle stoning of the Jamarat, and lastly, it is sunnah to raise the hands after every prayer when one has completed the tasbih.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So this really could be uh, um, a section where we could say section on um, when to raise the hands and when not to raise the hands in prayer and outside of prayer as well. Some of them are not in their prayer as well. So in the prayer, first of all, when do you raise the hands? The only time you raise the hands in prayer, which is to the earlobes or to the ears, and for the men and to the shoulders for the women, is at the beginning of prayer, right? It says there, except at the beginning of prayer. When you do your takbir of witr, of kunut, Allahu Akbar, Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastaghfiruka wa nastahdika wa natubu ilayk, the dua kunut. So it's called dua kunut, it's called takbir of kunut, right? So that takbir, you raise your hands and then you tie them again and then you read the kunut dua and you go to ruku. So you raise your hands there, second one. When you're in Eid prayer and you do the 6 extra takbeers, 3 in the first rakat, 3 in the second rakat, and Eid prayer, like I said, is coming later. For all 6 takbeers, you will raise your hands as well. So in the prayer, it's only these 6, 7, 8 takbeers you will raise your hands for. You will also raise your hands for other circumstances, but not in the prayer. He says, when you see the Kaaba, okay? So when you see the Kaaba, you raise your hands for dua. You can raise your hands to greet it as well, but it's really raising your hands for dua here. It's not for praying. It's not the Allah Akbar and going to pray. It's the raising your hands for dua. As you know, those who've been on Umrah and Hajj, may Allah allow us all to go this year. Those going on Hajj and give them to even in just Umrah and visitation of Messenger of Allah. As we said earlier, this is something we all would really love to do, and we ask Allah to allow us to go. Say Ameen.
Ameen.
Thank you, Hassan. Louder.
Ameen.
Thank you. So when you go there, you will, and it's sunnah, to when you see the black stone, to actually kiss it, to actually touch it if you can, or touch something to it. But obviously, you won't be able to do that most of the time. I think 99.99999% of the time, it's not going to happen. And if you're one of those lucky 0.001%, Allah bless you, but don't harm anyone or push anyone or do that, which is always what happens. But what you do instead, let's just say the Kaaba's in front of me rather to the side, you will greet the black stone and you will do istilam, is called, of the Hajar al-Aswad. And that is by facing the palms of your hand towards the black stone and saying, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Right, that's what you say. And you do that every time you greet the black stone. And in Tawaf, you greet the black stone 8 times. You obviously it's on your left hand side, that's why I was doing it. When you do Tawaf, it's on your left. And you can turn your body slightly, but you can, obviously from the side. You say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, because a black stone is going to be on your left. This is my left, guys. And you say Bismillah Akbar wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah, and you can make a dua. You can do anything, you can talk and do anything, but it's sunnah to do that. And you intend, you do your first, you do your dua, this is the dua for my umrah. I'm doing 7 rounds to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your intention. Bismillah, you start it with the istilam, Bismillah Allah Akbar, your dua has started. When you come around and you complete 1 circuit, you do the same again. Bismillah Allahu Akbar, when you're parallel to the black stone, and there's a line. Actually, there's no line. There's a green light. Sorry, that's behind you. You can see roughly where people will be doing it. There's like thousands of people saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar at that point, so you can't miss where to say it. Sometimes you do miss it because you're busy reading something or on your phone or something, right? People, you're allowed to use your phone in Tawaf, unfortunately. Maybe they should ban it. I don't know. But yeah, so that is a time where you will raise your hands as well. And then it says when you go to Safa and Marwa, so as you can see, they're related to Umrah and Hajj. You're doing the sa'i, when you go to Safa, you raise your hands towards the Kaaba as well. And similarly, when you get to Marwa, and you raise your hands to actually greet the Kaaba and make dua as well. So you raise your hands to make dua. And in Arafat as well, so when you're in Arafat, you raise your hands for dua. In Muzdalifah, you raise your hands for dua. Similarly, after the Jamra al-Ula and the Wusta, so you do the stoning of the first Jamra, you make dua afterwards with your hands raised. You do stoning of the second Jamra, you do dua with your hands raised. People go to one side and make dua, you'll see them taking the Kaaba with their hands raised, there'll be a whole section. They move you on, but you get time. You just move on slightly and keep making dua. And then after the third one, you don't stand and do dua, you keep moving off because it's the end and you need to get off. You don't stop after the third one. The people do stop, there is place to stop, but you're not supposed to. You're supposed to move on. Sometimes actually to move on after the third one as well. Um, and then it says you raise your hands for the tasbih after the prayer, i.e., for the time after the prayer, which is when you finish your prayer. After the prayer, you say, Allahumma anta salam, minka salam, tabarak ya dhal jalali karam. Allahumma inna ala dhikrika. So for these du'as, these tasbih, so when it says glorification here in the last one, it means when you're glorifying Allah and extolling Allah and doing takbir and stuff, and making dua at the end of the aqib as-salawat, end of your prayers, you raise your hands at this point as well and make dua, right? So this is just a slight, like I said, this is a little section you could entitle when to raise our hands or not raise our hands. These are the times where it's been legislated and clearly written or made clear that there is a raising of the hands. There are a few differences of opinion, but this is the understanding we take here, according to the Hanafi school and Imam Abu Hanifa and his companions and so forth. And that's just, like I said, a little section you could put in. Going back now to the prayer itself, if Hassan reads on.
When the male completes the second prostration of the second rak'ah, he is to sit for tashahhud and he is to spread his left foot and sit upon it while his right foot is upright with the toes directed towards the qibla. During this, he is to place his hands on his thighs, flattening his fingers, and the female is to adopt the wuruk style of sitting.
Yes, so now, Jazakallah khairan, Hassan. What do we do now? Sorry, 1 second, guys. So after the second rakat is complete, so that's ruku, 2 sajdas, you're going to say Allah Akbar, not stand up for a third rakat. You're going to have to sit now. So you sit Allah Akbar after the second sajda of the second rakat, right? Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. And you sit down for tashahhud. So it says, you sit for the men. How do you sit? You sit in the iftirash position. The iftirash position, and I'm going to try and do something dodgy right now. Hopefully it comes off. I don't know if it will, but I'm going to get my pen here and tablet things and try and show you these positions. If it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But let's have a look. Right. So you should all see a whiteboard now as well. And let's draw on it. So this is my bad drawing, so I'm going to try. My bad drawings I'm going to try to do. So you have a person from the back. We're going to look at the person. So when you come out of the sajda, you sit on your left foot. So let's do a left foot, right? This is your left foot here. Don't know how that works, but yeah, that's your left foot. There, your toes and stuff like that, right? And that's your body. That's the person here. Sitting on the left foot, there's a head, right? And your right foot is, your right leg is here somewhere. Like I said, diagram's not going to be brilliant. And you're sitting with the right foot here. Okay, actually not come out too bad, I think. What do you think, Hassan? Is that okay?
Perfect.
MashaAllah. So this is your foot. This is the heel of your foot here, right? And your toes are facing that way. You can't really see them because your foot will be there. This is called the iftirash position, okay? Iftirash. What iftirash means is spread, really, right? Iftirash. And this is the position taken for men. Men do iftirash, okay? They'll sit on their left foot and they will erect their right foot to the right hand side, and obviously in front, we look from behind so you can't see the knees and hands, but the hands will be on the knees, etc. For ladies, it's different. So if ladies, I'll just do on the left. For ladies, let's try and do the diagram again. Do the body first, a bit easier. For ladies, what they're going to do, and like I said, it's not going to be easy, is they're going to just pass their legs to the side here, right? They'll be covered in a like nice long clothing and everything, right? It's not like they're bare from the back. But this is their feet, right? This is their feet. And actually this will probably be more like that, right? They'll be to the side. So they're going to sit with their legs. Let me try again, like this. It'll be like, I don't know how to do it, but like that more so, right? It'll be like slightly bent their legs to the side. They're facing that way. It looks like they're facing this way, but they're not. Sorry about that. It hasn't come out really well. I'm going to get rid of all of that. But yeah, we'll give up on that now. So coming back to the position. So the ladies will put out their legs to the right hand side, facing forwards. They won't sit on they sit on their buttocks on the ground, and the legs will be on the side. So it's different for men and women when they come to the sitting position. And then it says here to put the hands on the thighs, as mentioned, and to spread the fingers. I just spread them out normally. Don't spread them out like that, or don't close them together. Just keep them normal, right? Standard, more or less facing the Qibla, right? Standard. And you read the Tashahhud of Ibn Mas'ud. Right, Bismillah, if you want to carry on, Hassan, read the Tashahhud of Ibn Mas'ud.
Sheikh, just a quick question. The toes on the right foot facing forward. Obviously, we see a lot of people whose toes don't face forward. What's the ruling with that? You have to, or?
It's sunnah for the toes to be facing forwards. So if somebody puts them down like this or to the side, it's missing the sunnah. So if they have an issue to do that, like they feel it, that they have like I don't know what to say. They have like a
Some people just can't. It's just difficult.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So if some people have this issue when it comes to the uncomfortableness, or I mean, for illnesses and stuff, it's already generally the case. But for some people, they do have that inability to keep their feet kind of on the ground, or facing the Qibla. It's quite hard for them. In that case, then the person can just put them to one side. Really, I mean, what can you do? You gotta give them the concession there. Yeah, and it is
Yeah. Okay. Okay. One is to utter the tashahhud as reported by Ibn Mas'ud and indicate with the index finger for shahada, raising it at the negation, there is no God, and lowering it when affirming, except Allah. Nothing is to be added to the tashahhud during the first sitting. The tashahhud is greeting to Allah, peace be upon you, O Prophet, and the mercy of Allah and His blessings. Peace be upon us and upon Allah's righteous slaves. I testify there is no God except Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah.
So that tashahhud, as you just read there, translation of, is what is to be recited in the sitting. So when you sit, you start with, as we talked about the posture, right? Then you read the following. You read at-tahiyatu lillahi was-salawatu wa-tayyibatu wassalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi as-salihin. La ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasul. That's the tashahhud. Okay, those words we just recited of the translation of. When you recite those words, there is a point where you're going to say the shahada, the two shahadas, testimonies of faith. When you recite the first shahada, there's a sunnah we talked about as well of raising the finger and lowering it. At the time of negation, la ilaha, there's no God, you raise your finger. When you say illallah, you lower the finger. That's the Hanafi school and how it's done. So once you read the tashahhud, you've completed rakat, or you have got to the, depending on if you're praying 2 rakat prayer or more, you may then carry on to the end of the prayer, or you may stand up. Let's say you're praying a 3 rakat prayer or 4 rakat prayer, 4 rakat fard. Now we're going to stand at this point for the 3rd rakat. Okay, so you're just going to recite 2, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا عَبْدُهُ وَرَسُولُهُ, in the manner described there. And now you will stand for rakat number 3. So how is rakat number 3, or what's going to happen? If Hassan reads on, we'll find out.
Subsequently, one is to recite the Fatiha alone in the last 2 rakats. He is then to sit in the last rakah and recite the tashahhud followed by the Ibrahimiyya. He then supplicates that which resembles the Quran and Sunnah. Upon completion, the finishing salams are to be made, beginning with the right and then the left, saying, "May peace be upon you and the mercy of Allah," during which one intends in his salams those who are with him, as was mentioned earlier.
Thank you very much, Hassan. So you stand up for the next 2 rakats as normal, and you read Fatiha only, because we're talking about a fard prayer, like we said. So if it's a fard prayer like Isha, you'll get up and you'll pray Fatiha in the third rakat, you'll do a ruku, a sujood, etc. You get it for the fourth rakat, and you pray the Fatiha, ruku, sujood, and then you'll sit again for the last sitting now. You're doing 4 rakats, it's the last sitting. Had it been like Fajr prayer, we would have done this at the point of rakat number 2. Because you're doing 4 rakats, we're going to do these 2 more, and then we're going to have to do the same procedure. At the end of every prayer is this procedure now. And you sit for the last sitting, whether it's 2, 3, or 4 rakats. You read the tashahhud again, if it's the first or the second time reading it, because in 3 and 4 rakat prayers, you'd have read it already at the point of 2 rakats. After reading the tashahhud, you now move on to the Durood Sharif, which is citations upon the Prophet sallallahu Salah ala Nabi sallallahu wasallam, and then you make a dua bi ma yushbihu al-Quran wa Sunnah. So with anything that resembles the Quranic duas and the Sunnah duas of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam, and then you perform the salam, and you give salam to your right hand side, as we explained before, while intending, if you're in a congregation, those on your right hand side. If the imam is there, the other people in the congregation, the angels and pious jinn. And if you're alone, then just the angels that are praying with you, inshallah. And then the same on the left. And the wording you say is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And that will conclude the salah. Right? So hopefully that is now a whole procedure that we can see from beginning to end how it works. Okay, how we pray, what we do at each stage, the ruling of each stage or each part. We've already explained some parts of fard, the main 5, 6 fard of Allahu Akbar, standing, recitation, bowing, prostrating, and sitting at the end. There's wajibat like making your recitation al-Fatiha, pausing in your ruku and sujood, keeping the order of things, reading the tashahhud. So, sitting after 2 rakats. There's certain wajibat, and there's certain sunan, such as saying Subhan Rabbi al-Azim in the ruku, making sure your back is straight, placing your hands in the right place, raising your hands. So the various rulings of each element of prayer have been discussed. And we've now gone through the whole prayer from beginning to end. So one should, having studied that, really be able to pray. And that's why I hope we can do now. So at this point, if you've been part of the previous lessons as well, you shouldn't be at any odds or, don't know how to perform the salah. It's really just as we've explained. Today's lesson probably the one that really explains it from beginning to end. Stand up, Allahu Akbar, recitation, ta'awudh and thana and everything and all this. Now, obviously, you've got to learn these parts and practice them. I think for most listeners, viewers, people, it's something they will have learned and they're just not accustomed to how to do it or correct way of doing it. So hopefully now you've got all the correct understanding as well. For others, maybe converts, people who haven't learned that when they were younger in the masajid and so forth, they may need to learn actually the thana. They actually need to learn, surahs and, the tasbihat and sort of the tashahhud, which is not a blemish on anyone. Everybody has their own time when they learn, has their own time when they turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that is the case for someone, support them. Don't be critical of others, be supportive of others, be encouraging. And, this will bring them more to prayer, more to the religion of Islam. If we're the practicing ones, it doesn't make us better than other people. It just makes us with more responsibility. Our punishment could be worse because we're not fulfilling our role. We actually might be scaring people away from practicing because we are so, militant and, rough and not kind. But if we are nice and we are gentle and we are welcoming, then actually it'll bring more people towards practicing the faith. So you could actually be a doorway to so much good in the way you interact with others around you. And I'm telling you, this is for you out there, person, primarily who's with me here. The way you behave with your friends will encourage them to pray if you do the right things, if you behave the right way. I'm not talking about call them to the mosque or say you're going to be pious. No, just you being friendly to them, you being kind to them. And then they know you're somebody who prays, they know you're somebody who practices. They will start asking you, right? They will say, oh, can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about that? Or how do you do this? Why do you do that in prayer for? They'll start asking the question, which will lead to them slowly making their way into practicing religion more. I mean, Hassan, you must have come across brothers and people like this. Anything you can remember, maybe share with us?
To be honest with you, most of this has probably just helped me improve my own salah more than anything. But not 100% at least. When there are times you sit down with friends, with brothers, talk about simple little things. And honestly, over the last few weeks, definitely what we've read and gone through has helped me, and it's things that you can kind of pass on to people as well. Just simple stuff like starting, the rakaz with Bismillah. That's just something I can just think off the top of my head. I used to always read namaz, second, third, fourth rakaz, just as soon as I got up into it, and start off with Alhamdulillah Sharif. And I've seen people obviously do the rakaz and start with Bismillah. I never used to do that, but obviously,
Right. Okay.
yeah. So that's just something that's just come off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, saying
That's changed
Bismillah
and
is a
improved.
sunnah. It's not a requirement, so your prayers are perfectly
No,
fine.
yeah,
You actually
yeah,
should say Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Yeah,
yeah. But it's something that has added and improved my namaz.
definitely. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
and hopefully through talking to other people, maybe improved other people's as well.
Yeah, no, it's good to share with family, with friends.
Yeah.
Don't quarrel. Some people sometimes you don't know, right? And you're like, is it this one? Is it
Yeah,
that way?
yeah,
And you have a little debate at home, which is nice if it stays friendly. But sometimes they can get heated, and people are like, no, this is my way. Maybe you have to go to some Maulana and Mufti and get the fatwa, right? Does that happen as
yeah.
well?
No. Eventually, I think I'll get to that point in a few years. Yeah.
MashaAllah. Okay, so that concludes that section, but we'll move now on to the next section, which is on the imama. So imamat, as they call it, is a congregational prayer, and who can lead the prayer, who should lead the prayer, etc. So we're going to move on to that now. So Bismillah, Hassan, if you want to read on.
Okay. The imam be the imam of a group of to be the imam of a group of prayer is superior than giving the call to prayer. To offer the prayer in congregation is an emphasized sunnah for a free man who has no valid excuse to be absent.
Yeah, so first of all, you just mentioned there that what is of greater virtue, calling the adhan, leading the prayers. Leading the prayer is of greater virtue. The Prophet led the prayers, and Sayyidina Bilal called the adhan. I'm not sure, I believe the Prophet made an adhan, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the general, obviously, virtue, greater merit is in being the imam of the prayers. You can do both as well, it's not a problem. So you can be the imam, you can be the muezzin and do the adhan, and do the iqama and be the imam, believe it or not. So you can literally do the iqama and step forward and be the imam. You can do that, it's not a problem. But usually they have a separate person for the adhan and iqama and a separate person to be the imam. That's just normal, and that's generally across the Muslim world. But if in like small villages or sometimes a quiet masjid, not many congregants, sometimes the imam himself will do the adhan when he arrives. There might not be anybody confident to do the iqamah, so he'll do the iqamah, he'll go forward and do the adhan, the prayer. And in right now, if people are in the masajid, there's only like 2-3 people going due to the lockdown, right? So those watching this back many years later, we were in a lockdown during the COVID-19 virus, in the United Kingdom, and we were doing online classes at home, trying to share the benefit with you all. So please make dua for everyone and who's helping out. Allah bless them all for facilitating. And we were talking about, the masajid are not, we're not allowed, and we shouldn't be going to large congregations or any congregations really outside of necessity. And we're not going to the masajid, but there are 1 or 2 people at every local masjid going there, making the adhan and praying the prayer. Usually families. So what I've been told is that rather than strangers come and go, because it's like one family is being given responsibility, because they're all at home together, they all go to the masjid together, they all go back together. It makes sense to do that rather than to get one person from this street, that street, that street. So you got 5 different people coming, and just moving around the germs possibly, and so forth. But yeah, that's the world we're living in right now. So that's the reality. But going back to the point, yes, imamat is of a greater virtue than adhan, and to pray in congregation for men who are free. So free men, we had slaves in the olden days, right? So we always have to mention free. Even when it comes to Jummah, we're going to say Jummah is not obligation on slaves, obligation on free men, not on slaves. So if you're a free person, which we all are now, alhamdulillah, and you're a male, then you must go to the Jummah. Oh, Sunnah Muakkada, in the more in-depth discussions and research into the nature and ruling of congregational prayer for men, it is mentioned in the books of the Hanafi school and other schools as well, actually, that it's actually a wajib. It's actually a requirement for men to go to the congregational prayer. I think Imam Ahmed says it's a requirement outright. That's his opinion. And only if you've got a valid excuse can you pray alone, and so forth. However, you just read that it's sunnah there, and that is correct. So what they say, the overall kind of understanding of the ruling of congregational prayer for men, it's a sunnah mu'akkada qaribatun or shabihatun, is similar to a wajib. We can't call it a wajib, but it's very similar to or close to a wajib, meaning it's actually very, very, very highly emphasized sunnah that we should try as men to do as much as possible and not be lazy or consider it a secondary thing, but try and make all of our prayers in a form of congregation. That doesn't mean we have to go to our local masjid for every prayer. Congregation here means if you're at work, you're not going to leave work every day for Zohar to go to the masjid, unless it's local and you can. It might be 20 minutes away the masjid, half an hour away, depends where you work. It might not be a masjid for an hour or so. But if you can find other Muslims at work, then you should congregate men with men, and try and pray together. Right? And if you can't pray by yourself, at home right now, we should try and pray in congregation. So for some families that's doable, like some of us have sons, or generally a family too that's praying, so we can pray together. Some of you may have family members that don't pray or they're not really concerned about prayer, so getting them to do congregation would be not the task. Getting them to maybe pray a few prayers would be, unless with wisdom and gentleness and kindness. But yeah, so if you can do a congregation at home and you have got family members, then ask them to make wudu and do an adhan at home right now. And they all notice, oh, dad's doing adhan, right, as the head of the household, for fathers mainly, or the elder brother's doing adhan, or so one of the men of the household. Then everyone else can join in. The ladies can join the congregation as well, and they should all pray together and do dua together and so forth. It's really important time to it helps bond a lot. And Muslims are losing out on a lot of goodness together by just not practicing the basics. So right now it's really a good idea to pray together at home and from the Jummah home. But obviously this book and the rulings here are talking about the masjid and praying in a main congregation in a masjid, etc. But congregation can take place outside of a masjid as well, and that's not a problem. But what are the conditions for an imam to be an imam? If you read on, Hassan.
Okay. Conditions that validate position of imam, 6 conditions. Number 1, Islam. Number 2, maturity. Number 3, sanity. Number 4, being male. Number 5, a recitation of the Quran. Number 6, to be free from excuses such as perpetual nosebleed, stuttering, mumbling, lisping.
Yeah, so thank you very much. There are 6 conditions for the leader of the prayer to be a valid leader, meaning if these 6 conditions are not fulfilled, that person can't lead the prayer. If you were to lead the prayer, nobody's prayer is valid behind that person. His prayer may well be valid, right, because he's prayed. But to be an imam, no, he's not valid imam. Okay, what are those 6 conditions? Muslim, obviously. Baligh, so a child can't lead the prayer. 10-year-old child, 11-year-old child can't lead the prayer unless they reach bulugh. Bulugh is puberty, right? Aql meaning sane, so that's a condition for most things, right? Dhukura, so male. A female can't lead the prayer, okay? Yes, we will maybe talk about later that if ladies do the congregation amongst themselves, one lady can lead the ladies in prayer. Even that's not recommended, but it's all it's done. Maybe it's valid. But here we're talking about the main congregation of men and women, and a woman cannot lead others in prayer in that sense. Okay, so it has to be a male. And then number 5 is recitation. So the opposite of recitation here is what they call ummi, or somebody who doesn't know how to read or can't pronounce the Quran correctly, and so forth. So that person shouldn't be the imam, and so forth. And number 6, somebody who's free of any excuses, as we're going to learn later as well, or we learned before actually in purification, for those of you with us on that, Hassan, mainly, that you can have certain excuses in terms of what breaks your wudu. So perpetual nosebleed, not being able to control one's urine discharges or wind, etc., or these kind of things. That person, that male who's got an excuse or a condition, chronic illness, can't be the imam as well. His illness rules him out being the imam. And also, if a person has what we call excuses in terms of recitation, which is that the person has a lisp, which doesn't allow him to recite the Quran properly, or has a stutter, which happens for some people, and obviously then recitation will be starting and stopping and halfway through the word, and this, that, it'll be breaking you up, which is not valid for the person to be an imam. For himself, if he's praying by himself, obviously that's a condition. Allah's not going to take him to task for that. And if it's a she as well, it's fine. But in a congregation, which should only be a male, then that person who's got this stutter, stammer, this lisp, cannot be the imam of the prayer as well. Okay. And did you mention the last couple? If you want to mention them.
We did the last couple over there, number 6. I think the one that we just missed at the end was the position of imam is invalid if he's missing a condition such as the absence of purity or exposure of one's nakedness.
That was what I thought. I wasn't sure if you read that. So again, if the imam doesn't have purity, meaning he doesn't have anything to purify himself, can't do tayammum, can't be imam, basically. There are reasons why he wouldn't be able to purify himself and could still pray, actually. But that's a very rare situation. We won't go into that. But the other situation is the aura is more likely to happen. Again, not very likely in general, but is somewhat likely. Let's say some chance of it is that you don't have enough clothing to cover your aura. We talked about the reserved area, the private area. If you don't have enough clothing to cover that, you can't go be the imam. This male person who's not got enough clothing can't go and lead the prayer of other people, unless they're all the same. So unless they all haven't got enough clothing to cover themselves, which might be a situation, I don't know, after some calamity, there's no clothes. I don't know. It's very rare. They capsized in a ship and they drowned and the clothes got lost as well somehow. Right? I don't know. But if they are, it does mention that if there are people without clothing and they do a jamaat together, it's valid because they're all in the same situation. They all haven't got enough to cover their nakedness, their aura. But obviously, if there are just a person who's got a lack of clothing, he can't be the imam, whilst everyone else behind him has clothing covering their aura. Obviously, the answer is to that, just give him a piece of cloth to cover himself, enough to lead the prayer. That's what you should do. But the ruling is there as well, that somebody who hasn't got the aura covered can't lead the prayer of other people, right? And if it's a valid excuse for him, then it's a valid excuse for him. We talked about actually at the beginning, didn't we? We talked about the conditions of prayer, covering the aura. And if you haven't got the covering, then you can pray, and it's better to pray sitting down and gesturing rather than standing and showing your nakedness and your body, etc. But yeah, so that is the conditions for the imam. So imam has to fulfill those conditions. Okay, what about the follower? What conditions does the follower have to fulfill to join to an imam? We will discuss that next week, inshallah ta'ala. It's a bit of a longer section, and we'll talk about that next week, and then we'll continue with the concept of imamate and congregational prayer, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan for today, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.